Welcome back to the Whiskey and Wisdom Podcast, everyone. This is your co-host, Tyler Y'all, and today I am with
Chris Kellum.
And our two special guests are
Mike Rakowski
and
Catherine Brunner.
And you may recognize both of them, especially Catherine, because I think this is like the fourth or maybe even fifth time that you've been on the podcast. And as we discussed previously, even though she's been on multiple times, this is the first time she's actually drinking on our podcast.
I'm so proud.
Same with Mike.
And
You
same
didn't
with
drink
Mike.
on the last one, right?
Yeah, that's right. The first one I did with you guys, I was doing 75 hard at the time, and so I was trying to be incredibly disciplined and didn't even take a sip. That will not be the case today.
Let's go. So talking about whiskeys that we're drinking. So we got Weller Foolproof, and this is a barrel select. Shout out to Matt Costin. He runs a pretty sick Instagram. I think it's Wilmington Realtor, but I'll double check. But he always posts really cool stuff around town, events, and gets people involved, which is pretty cool. He went out and did a barrel pick. So that's what we're trying. Typical foolproofs for those who want the background. Weller falls in the Buffalo Trace family. That's a little bit different because this one is more wheat than rye. So that's for you, Tyler. Ooh, and most of these are bottled at 114 proof.
It didn't taste that hot when I tried it.
Hey, I'm just telling you.
I was being polite and waiting.
Someone's disciplined over here.
So it's supposed to be a balance of rich mouthfeel with a robust notes of vanilla and oak. And then it's a non-chill filtered whiskey. Very, very classic. And then tasting notes, you'll have vanilla and dark cherries with caramel on the nose. And then you should have a balance of caramel and toasted oak with a creme brulee and kind of chocolate finish. But because this is a barrel pick, it's going to be a little bit different flavor-wise too. So shout out to the whiskey lovers. I'm going to be different.
And be neat. I like
Yeah.
it.
Cheers.
Cheers.
That smells good.
That's tasty.
Yeah.
This is so smart.
The caramel and the oak I get a lot of
Yep.
up front.
Thank
This
you for
is-
making this whiskey and wisdom because
Yeah.
Oh, this is-
exactly. Do something to make it
We're
fun.
not sure where
Yes.
this podcast is going, but you got the first half of the podcast.
First half.
Have the whiskey down.
So, gonna start off real silly. How do you guys feel about square glasses drinking out of versus round?
depends on what I'm drinking out of it.
So with whiskey, like how do you drink out of this?
Well, I feel like
do you
that,
drink
perfect,
flat
'cause
side
it's-
or corner?
no,
like,
I'm a both. Gotta mix it up. But I feel like my ice fits in here better. This cup was made for my ice.
So here's the fun thing about these glasses. So
Okay.
the real way you drink out of these glasses is there's actually a half cube that fits in here that fills up half the whole glass.
We have one. Yeah.
Yeah. And so when I'm drinking it like that, I have to drink out of the corner
With
just
the pinky?
because. Yep, with the pinky.
Okay.
Well, there we go. We're on the same page
Yes.
there. But like this, I can just drink it like a normal.
I think your first one out of a square glass is easy, but if you have more than one, it might be a little difficult.
Yeah.
That's probably true.
It's been a while. Haven't drank with you or you. What has been your favorite whiskey?
Probably Blanton's,
Just classic Blanton's?
classic Blanton's. Just
Okay.
so consistent, so tasty. I like that one a lot. If I had to pick one.
Okay. It's been the only time I've had Blanton's is with Palmer.
Oh yeah, that's right.
We had an episode with Palmer that didn't make it.
Yep.
I want to say something, some of the sound or something was messed up, and I was like, this is the one time I've had Blanton's. It was pretty good, though.
Yeah.
What about you?
Kentucky, not confiscated, but
Mhm.
batch 10. It tastes like caramel. It's smooth. It's so easy to drink. What?
You can go online if it hasn't sold out yet. I just thought about it right now. The Midwinter's Dram has dropped today. So if you're into that, you can order that. So if you're listening to it now, sorry, it's probably gone.
That's what
But yeah,
this is
it's
doing.
from High West. It's a Midwinter's Dram.
Yeah.
I think
I
it's,
do like their smoked. They have a campfire,
Yeah.
the High West campfire in the middle of winter.
Oh, yes.
It's a
Mhm.
great.
See, we were talking about this. So would you guys be interested in to a podcast episode where we just talk about like seasonal whiskeys that we like or like our top rated ones?
Yeah, I probably would.
What about you?
I'll
It's
drink it because it's pretty and it tastes good. But anything beyond that, I'm kind of like, meh. It's
whatever.
Right.
But now, if we talked about wine, I would nerd out.
I was
So
about
I
to
can
say,
respect
yeah, if we
people that
change
like the whiskey, yeah.
the W
Yes,
alcohol.
exactly. I would
No,
nerd
actually, it
out
would be
all
kind
day.
of an interesting podcast modification where you did
Yeah.
it's whiskey and wine.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to
Could we
try to impart some wisdom.
Yeah.
And that would be kind of interesting to be able to do a combined whiskey and wine.
That would be interesting.
I've
We'll
gotten-
bring you guys back on.
Yeah, I've
Well,
gotten deep in
especially
that.
since we've been to
Yes.
Italy for her birthday with our significant others and been to Tuscany and drinking wine.
We brought
Oh,
so much
so-
wine home, and now when we go to local restaurants, we bring our own bottle and we just pay the
Oh,
bucket
yeah.
fee just to have good wine.
I didn't
Yeah.
know that was an option.
Can't really get it in the U.S.
Yeah, no. But we drank an unreasonable amount of wine when we were there, and we were fine.
Okay.
That's what I've heard a lot of people say too, just because it doesn't have all the additives and preservatives and everything else. And
Well, one day we ended up splitting and going separate ways. We had met in Florence. We went to a wine resort there and did a full day experience. And then Mike and Stephanie went one place, and then Alan and I went towards the coastal side of Tuscany and went to a different wine resort. And when we got there, in the morning we did like a breakfast wine tasting with
Mhm.
different meals. And then we did a massage and they had given us one. And then we had like a 5-course lunch. And long story short, by the time we were at our like dessert at the end of the day, we'd probably consumed 4 bottles of wine between the two of us, like, or more, or maybe
Yeah.
each. I don't know. We don't remember. But we were fine. And we woke up the next morning and like we went for a hike and we had energy and we slept well. And that is not the case here in America at all.
It's
And I ate
amazing.
pasta and pizza the whole time. And my jeans fit the same when I
Yeah.
left. It was great.
Actually, I went home. I think I weighed 2 pounds less than when I left for Italy, eating and drinking that way, which is a statement to kind of the corruptness of the FDA here
Mhm.
and what we allow in our foods and our drink, etc. It's a sad statement.
Well, and we were
That's the
gluttonous. I mean, we landed in Paris and then the first flight that Mike and Stephanie took got delayed. You guys had to catch a train
Oh wow.
or something to get back to Florence, remember? Because the wind.
We did. We actually had to fly into Pisa, where the Leaning Tower is, because the winds were too strong, and take a train back. And then you guys, your flight was delayed, but you were delayed enough the winds died down so they could fly straight into Florence. But we
Oh,
got
wow.
there about the same time.
But
It worked out
That's
better.
They were shopping and then we walked down the street and met them. We went into a restaurant and we ordered everything. We ordered pizza, we ordered pasta, we ordered steak, we ordered
Everything.
like everybody had 2 entrees basically. And then we had wine there and then we went across the street, we bought a bottle of wine. We went down the street, got gelato, and then we went and sat in, like it was dark outside, at the Statue of David
So amazing.
replica
Right.
and just drank straight out of the bottle, passed it back and forth as we were eating gelato.
That's awesome.
Like in the little piazza. Just
hard- It's hard to
touristy.
beat that. So it is prototypical to what you would think Italy was exactly what it was.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So wait. Multi questions. Where's the real statue of David?
The real statue of David is in a museum in Florence.
Okay.
And they put a replica because vandals would there's actually part of the toe is chunked out because somebody took a sledgehammer to it. And so they put it within the Museum d'Académie and it's under you have to go through surveillance and all of that to protect it along with a bunch of other sculptures. So the statue of David that's in the courtyard is
A replica.
replica.
Interesting. Which reminds me, I said this at one point. We were watching Top Chef. So I love watching people cook, even though it's not me. And they did the finals for last season. They went to Italy and they allowed them to sit in a museum. And it actually had the original painting of the Last Supper.
Mm.
First off, super sick. I was like, got emotional. I was
Yeah.
like, that's awesome. But I didn't realize how big it was.
Oh, yeah.
Mhm.
Like, the people were sitting down looking up at this thing, and all of the people were life size. And I was like, because all you see typically is like on a photo or somewhere else. And I was like, someone sat and painted a life size mural with 13 people with the full background. Like, I've kind of sad that artistry is kind of shrunken itself to fit within like our capsules, which is like cell phones or like on a TV. So you don't get that full scale that you used to. So I'm kind of salty that
Obviously, Europe is much older than our country, and so
Yes.
a lot of the artwork over there is that way. Like, it was their life's expression. It wasn't just, hey, I'm going to make some money off of this. I'm seeking material value from this. This is my soul being poured into something, and there wasn't enough space for it to take up. They didn't think about it as everyone's going to like this. They thought about it as, what can I give? What can I do? There's more passion behind it.
Well, it's fascinating. You talk about that. It's so embodied in those days of Michelangelo and Da Vinci and all those. There were no female actors. They were not allowed. And they actually would self-castrate to start to have female features so that they could play the roles of a female as a male, because females weren't allowed.
All
You're
of
talking about
Shakespeare
the
events,
passionate, the passion in that
Right.
artistry. I mean, wow.
Yeah.
I mean, and talk about David. I have such a passion for David and the life of David. So we usually talk personal development. So I'll jump in on David and why it fascinates me so much. So when you think about the statue of David and when Michelangelo chose to depict him, at what stage in David's life was it? You know, is it right after he slayed Goliath? Is after he was crowned king of Israel? Is it, all of these accomplishments that David had in his life? And Michelangelo chose to depict him, and he has the stone in his hand and the slingshot with the satchel around him, getting ready to slay Goliath. And for me, the meaning in that is in the moment of decision. He's not portrayed in that statue, which is world famous, after conquering. He's not portrayed after becoming king. He's portrayed in his moment of decision to follow the path that God laid out for his life. And I feel so strongly about it. I'm doing a study of David, and ultimately I plan on writing a book called The Moment of Decision. And what are the moments of decision in our lives that we have had, right? There's moments of decision where we said, we know that our family loves us, but they're probably holding us back, so we need to break free. I had that moment of decision. The moment of decision with your significant other, some of us, it's the moment of decision to leave that significant other and to move forward. But it's fascinating to think about the fact that that was the moment that Michelangelo chose to depict David. I just find that really fascinating.
Something I like about that too, because I heard that story as well. And so to put a faith spin on it too, is when he made that decision, people were like, he was so young, he had no experience. But at that point, he had already been anointed by God to be king. So that's the difference of fighting for victory and fighting from victory. He had already won. God had already crowned him king. He knew he was going to be king of Israel. So he knew, even standing up in front of Goliath, he was fighting from victory already. He knew he had already won before he started.
I love how much this came from your heart. You can see in the way that you're expressing it.
I just went through something like learning about that 2 weeks ago. So that's why, yeah.
Well, and the other thing is how often when someone that loves you, and I remember the first time we met, that caused the first podcast, I said, who's loving you into a lower level? But when you're going into a battle, who's trying to equip you with their armor that really will drag you down, right?
Yep.
Saul wanted to give David his armor, which he would have lost. He was not able to do it. It was his sword. It was his armor. And, how often do we not have the fortitude to look at someone and say, I don't need your armor for this battle of my life. And fortunately, David knew that and didn't use Saul's armor for that battle. So I think that's also a kind of
Well, I think sometimes the person that's loving us into a lower level isn't a person, it's our society. And the way that we've been programmed into, you have to do more, you have to win, you have to get the biggest job and the nicest car and all these things. And we're all running towards these huge goals rather than loving the work that's behind them. Because a lot of people, especially really successful people, I'm sure you can speak to this, that you've probably reached some obscene goal that the 13-year-old version of you couldn't even dreamed of. But then after it happened, you're just like, what's next? How can I keep running? What can I do? And you might be different in that way. But for me, that was one of the things that I always realized, is that I was always chasing what's next? What can I do? How can I find more? And it was actually, I read it probably 7 to 10 years ago when Mark Manson's book came out. But that was one of the things that he talked about, is that you have to love the struggle. And our culture doesn't teach that.
No. I was actually talking about exactly what you just said yesterday. And I had a goal in my mind from when I was like 15. And for some reason, like while I was going through high school, while I was going through college, I always kept that same goal and I never adjusted it to where I thought I could go. So I ended up hitting that goal when I was 27. And then I actually went in kind of like a depression for a year because I was like,
Now
this is
what?
everything that I wanted.
Yeah.
I was like, now what? What do I do now? Just because like I always have like that go-getter attitude. I want to go on to the next thing. And I didn't know where that goal needed to be or how to shift or how to make a new goal because I hadn't made one for so long and I didn't have that part of my practice. So now part of the practice is always revisiting that goal and like, hey, where am I on this? Where am I going to go next? So just always having that practice to going back and revisiting it and not just set one goal and like forget about it.
Well, that's a perfect example for relationships. So many people are like, I'll be happy when I find my perfect person. But are you the perfect version of yourself to attract that? And then once you're in it, it's not about who's going to make me happy. It's who are you willing to struggle through life with? Who is really good at problem solving with you? Who is really good at communicating with you? Because life's not easy.
Right.
And I think people think that they can take a magic pill to lose weight instead of grinding in the gym, which clearly you have been since the last time I saw you in the gym. But there's any form of success, any person that's achieved anything, they'll tell you that it's a mountain. And if you're not willing to climb, like there's no happiness at base camp. You're just going to be miserable looking up at the sky, and you have to figure out what you're willing to work hard for.
Well, I think in that, I love the climbing the mountain analogy, because I think when you can get to the point where the climb is actually more enjoyable to you than reaching the peak.
That's the point,
And
yeah.
when you get to the climb and you get to decide to go to the next peak, you're kind of jazzed up about it. I think it took me a long time I enjoy the journey now more than any potential destination.
100%.
And it's wonderful. And you talk about relationships. I really think, and talk about fitness and relationships, and I really think it took me a long time to learn. I think every interaction you have with someone is very much like a bank account. Every time you interact, you're going to make a deposit or you make a withdrawal.
Yep.
And it's, we try to complicate things. I always joke when, you're in the investment business. If someone sends me something to analyze that's an investment, I always tell them, do not send me math with letters, because you can use letters to manipulate anything to make a return look fantastic. And we try to overcomplicate like dieting, But at the end of the day, it's simple math. You're either making a deposit or withdraw. If you're consuming more calories than you burn in a day, you're gaining weight. If you consume less, you're going to lose weight. Now, you got to layer in, you can't eat all your calories with cake. But at the same time, every relationship, you're making a deposit or a withdrawal in every interaction. And if the account's overdrawn too long, the relationship ends. And if you have a massive credit balance, you have an opportunity to go through some speed bumps, and the relationship doesn't end because the account's not closed. And I think it's similar in fitness and business and romantic relationships, great friendships. I just love that analogy that you talked about, the account. We all have accounts with everybody we interact with.
When I was a kid and I would go camping, my mom had a rule when we would camp, and it was to always leave the campsite better than you found it. So we always had to clean up everything and make it look good. Well, since I was a child, I've embodied that concept with everything. Like I leave every person, every space. I'm not perfect, but I really do try to be present and consider what I'm saying and how I'm treating people, and try and leave spaces better than I found them. And I think if everybody could kind of take that concept and like be more accountable in our space, like a lot of stuff in our world would be better.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a quote that has like traveled with me since middle school, and it's be the change you want to see in the world.
Yes.
So it goes back to the same thing too. So like if you see something that there's a piece of trash on the ground, you're like, oh, why'd they throw that down there? Well, pick it up and throw it away, or whatever that case
Don't
may be.
perpetuate the negative energy.
We're so
Be part of the
irritated.
positive.
We're so easily irritated as a society by stupid things, right? I mean, even driving, I remember someone was with me and someone had cut really close in front of my car, and I didn't move. Like I just braked. That was it. And they're like, how are you not honking the horn? How are you not upset? I was like, they just cut you off. And I said, no, they didn't. They said, they just cut you off. I said, no, they cut a car off. they don't know who I am. We personalize these things so rapidly with such rapid offense that we are unable to see the path towards our own goals because we're letting strangers literally withdraw from our own personal bank account with ourselves, right? That's a withdrawal. I took personal offense. If you take personal offense to stuff like that, you're withdrawing from your own account, right? That's the other self-esteem. Relationships have a bank balance. You have a self-esteem balance. And that is withdrawing from your self-esteem, that you're taking offense that they cut me off. They don't even know who you are. And it's amazing how I went through life like that for a long time, right? But hopefully, podcasts like this and podcasts I've listened to and the Ed Milet's and the Brendan Burchards and the Mel Robbins of the world, if you consume that instead of doom scrolling, you kind of start to turn to the point where you really can live joyfully daily, even while everybody else says the world is crashing around us. It's not. This is not atypical. I love when people say this is unprecedented. We were burning down churches during desegregation, right? We had hostages in Iran in the late 70s. Like, nothing is unprecedented. I think the speed of communication is unprecedented, but that's not to diminish that we have real challenges, but people take such personal offense to things that don't really impact them on a daily basis, where they could really be a light for the world if they stop letting everybody else dim them.
Well, Mike, that speaks to how much, you and I have both changed significantly in the last 2 years, but how calm your nervous system is, and that things like that, maybe not specifically with vehicles, but other things would have maybe caused reaction out of you now that don't. And I think a lot of it is just through moving slower and being more intentional. And so much of that external expression that all of us are giving, it's because we're not taking accountability for how uncomfortable we are inside of ourselves. We're projecting that onto somebody else, and we want them to take responsibility rather than realizing when that car cuts you off and you have that big reaction, why? What's happening inside of you that's making that happen? Don't point at that person. That person, like you said, has no idea who you are. What in your life is making you so uncomfortable inside of yourself that you need everybody around you to take accountability rather than looking in the mirror?
I love the one of the best questions. I do this in leadership with our teams when there's conflict, but I've also carried it on to me. What's the story you're telling yourself? And it's usually not real, right?
Oh, yeah.
For so many people, it's not a real story. And it's such a fascinating place to get to. Catherine and I have been friends for years, and we've had, fortunately, hundreds of hours of conversations. So our interaction is super natural, and I love it. But she's helped me to grow so much as a man in understanding masculinity and femininity and the interaction between those two dynamics, not just in a healthy friendship, but then in a healthy romantic relationship. And I think
With Stephanie, not me.
that's right. Yeah, that's why I said healthy friendship. But we just it's people don't talk about this stuff, and that's what's wonderful about y'all's podcast and who you bring on. And if there's just a few people that listen, and it helps to change a little bit, bring a little more joy, it really is such a meaningful thing that you guys facilitate here.
So you bring up something, and then talking about the emotional part that I had when I shared before too, and then kind of what you said with the podcast. So over the last few weeks, there's been a lot going on in the world that has brought out a lot of emotions from people.
Yeah.
And I probably had at least a half dozen people because of the podcast that have been on the podcast. They're like, Tyler, what are you going to do about this? So there's two things that come to my mind with that. I take a lot of responsibility that people look to me as a leader, or as a thought leader, or as someone who's strong on their faith or leadership, whatever the case may be, to be okay, there's something I need to find here to go beyond myself. And then on the other side of that, it's also kind of sad that there's other people that they look for someone else to take charge. Do you have something that's dwelling inside you that's that strong, and you're reaching out to someone to do that? There's just as much power inside of everyone to do that. There's something that you can do in your corner to help make that positive impact. And so I'm glad people see me to make a large impact, either with a podcast or through some wisdom I can impart, or to lead them to someone else like yourselves, because I know you guys are more than happy to talk to anyone anytime about anything they're struggling with. But just knowing that everyone out there who's listening to this, you can strongly, positively impact your own corner as well.
Well, we're all leaders exactly the way that you said that, but I feel like the difference in a true leader and what we're seeing a lot of negativity in our world through leadership that is looking of how can you serve me? What can you do for me? Why aren't you doing this for me? Versus the way you just express yourself of how can I serve others? That's
Right.
true leadership. True leaders create leaders. You pull people up versus standing up on the throne and telling people what to do. I mean, that's the whole reason we created America anyway.
Right.
Well, and I think far too often everybody expects everybody to have an opinion on everything. It's perfectly okay, and I say it all the time. I don't have I don't know enough about that to have an opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what do you mean? Well, I don't know enough about that to have an opinion, and I have someone that's close to me, but said, "How do you feel about this?" I said, "I love that you're convicted by that. I'm not,
Mm-hmm.
right? And you don't have to be convicted by everything. You don't have to have an opinion on everything. I actually think that actually it's a sign of intelligence to be able to look at someone and say, I really have an opinion on that. I get asked a lot on, politically speaking, what's going on in a lot of facets. I don't really have an opinion. Do you want to talk about how I can help people become homeowners? How I can help people change their life through generational home ownership, which changes the lives of children, all of those sorts of things? Let's talk for hours. But if you want to talk to me about geopolitics or all of that sort of stuff, it's okay not to have an opinion on everything. I actually think it's a sign of intelligence, not a lack of intelligence, to be able to say that.
I'm going to use this just to pick on it for like a half a second, not saying that's not important.
Please.
Don't at me. But like what's going on with Israel and Gaza, there's so many people that have just like a clip of something that they saw and they want to have an opinion on it. That is such a complex, centuries long situation. I can guarantee you 99.9% of you that have an opinion on it don't even know the first thing was going on. Like, it's okay not to have an opinion about it. You can look at something and say, oh my gosh, that's really sad. I wish that didn't happen. That's fine. But to have like a conviction, like you said, on something about something you don't know about, I think it's okay to be like, hey, that's sad. I don't know enough about it, like you said. And
if you're getting
go
it
on.
through reels,
right,
you
exactly.
probably shouldn't form an opinion based on the reels.
Some of the most profound leaders in history, like Gandhi, or even the queen duck picture that you and I both have in our homes. I mean, it's pure silence that they were able to create some of the greatest change. And if circling back to what we were talking about before, if those people that are overly reacting to all of these things took half of that amount of energy and just applied it to their own community and actually created positive change and things that they could actually touch, if everybody did that, our world would be so different. And I'm just going to keep harping on that because nobody's willing to take accountability for what's happening inside themselves or inside their own home. And that's where the true change starts.
I mean, you need to start locally. Like, part of the reason I'm assuming why you ran for city council, right, was to affect change locally. We're always seeing broadcast news shows you stuff that's happening across the country or internationally, but it very rarely shows you what's happening where you are. And that's really what's going to affect you. Like, looking at the news is great. Are you watching multiple sources? Are you watching the same source to get all your information? Are you talking to the guy next to you and asking him like, oh, so like you live in Leland. How is it going out there? Like, what does the things look like for you? I live here in Wilmington. This is how it's going. And asking those things, what's your opinion on, all the people moving here from New York or Philly? Do you care? Do you not care? How is it affecting you? But instead, we're just, oh, look at that TikTok reel. Let's look at this. And I think, in general, we just need to work better in our local area. Start in your neighborhood. Make sure the kids can go outside and play a little bit. They should be able to do the old school way of like, oh, the lights came on, let's go back to the house. Like, we should get to a point where you're living life, your kids can come home, eat dinner, go outside and play, and not be as worried.
I think it's even smaller than that. Like, I feel like when I ran for office, like, I needed to come home to me first. And while, yes, I was delusional and thought that I could really help our community, once you actually get in that seat, there's really not a whole lot you can do. That's the same reason I joined the military. Like, I thought I could like help and protect our country and do all these great things. But like one person really can't do much to like the entire like country. But when you start taking accountability and self-awareness, like the pyramids, the quote on the outside is know thyself. Like, I feel like it's almost an anomaly that they intentionally left all of their like material well-being, like everything was in there of all their diamonds and all of their stuff and these things. They couldn't take that with them, but they chose to put on the outside of the pyramids of know thyself. So I think the change literally just starts with you. How are you speaking to yourself? How are you speaking to your significant other? How are you speaking to your children? Like, are your thoughts in line with your words, and are your words in line with your action? And if you're not in that alignment, then why are you judging others for not being there? Start with you.
I was in DC maybe a month or so ago visiting my sister. My sister is an art history major, wonderful human, works at the National Gallery. We're very different. I'm not artistic in any way, shape, or form, but I love going to things and have such an appreciation for it. And she took us to a park, one of the national parks in DC, and took us to a bonsai exhibit. This was fascinating. There's hundreds of bonsai trees in there. And there's actually one that survived the nuclear bomb in Japan that's in DC. That was, I think it was 2 miles from the epicenter of Hiroshima or Nagasaki. And I naively asked my sister, what kind of tree is a bonsai? And she said, any tree can be a bonsai. It's how you prune it and, the pot it's in and keeping it that. And then we kept going, and she said, as a matter of fact, here's a redwood bonsai. I haven't been able to stop thinking about that. So here's this seed that is in this pot that and in this case, I think this redwood was like 80 years old. You should see some of the dates. There's 100-plus-year-old bonsai, 152 in this display. And then you think about the redwood in Northern California, and you can drive through the center of some of them. And what really led me to think about it was, who's pruning you? Who are you allowing to prune you? Because the seed that God put in you, you can be a giant redwood.
Everyone.
But it is social media. It's the news can prune you. It's doom scrolling can prune you. It's all of these offenses can prune you. And I think at the end of the day, that really, I got really quiet the rest of the day, to the tune of my family and Stephanie says, is everything okay? I was like, no, I'm just deeply in thought. Because I think for a long time, I certainly was pruned by others. And I think I'm at a point now where, I'm perfectly fine being candid, because I think candor is love. I mean, I think it was 1 John when Jesus came, said, I come in grace and truth. We lie to people every day, like about anything, because we think we might offend them. But I think when you're authentic in your response, not mean, but authentic, authenticity and belief actually vibrate above love. And when you deeply think about it, right, when you were a kid, you probably had a teacher that would tell you like it was. I remember mine. I think it was 5th or 6th grade. It was Mr. Zerfas. He would get on me so hard, like, Rikoski, what the heck? You're so disorganized. Your papers crumble. Your backpack's a mess. Go sit in the hall and get your stuff together, right? And I'd be like, just jackass. But I knew my mom absolutely loved me. But at the same time, it was like, okay, I need this challenge. I need this authenticity. And I think Catherine may, I say things in Stephanie, the girl I'm dating, like say stuff and she's like, I don't understand how you don't get punched in the face. But I think we all have some people in our life where you feel an authenticity, you feel a grace and truth. And I think we'd really be a better society, starting on your block to in your home, on your block, in your town, that we stop trying to be so mealy-mouthed. And if you're asked your opinion, just confidently give it. Or if you don't have one, don't. But I think at the end of the day, who's pruning you into that bonsai tree when you really could be a giant redwood?
I like that. That's actually a quote, part of a quote that I saw too, with truth and grace. So truth without grace is brutality, and grace without truth is inauthentic.
How do you remember
Oh,
that?
that's so good.
That's beautiful.
So I heard that and I was like, oh my gosh, like that hits perfectly. And back to the pruning, that's biblical as well too. So even God calls himself the actual vine dresser. So back to who was actually pruning you is make a big difference, like you said, on how.
Mike and I probably say some of the most offensive stuff to each other in the most loving way, though. And there's been so many moments in our friendship where one of us had said something where if it was anybody else, it would not have been received well. But because it came from us,
true.
it's acceptable.
Mhm.
And I have some profound ones that you have given me, but one that really stood out to me, I wasn't in the space to hear it at the time you said it to me because I didn't have the mental, emotional, spiritual connection to myself to fully feel what you said. But it was right when the first time I told him that I was going to run for office. And I was really excited about it. My business was doing the best it had ever done. And I just was going to add even more to my plate. And he goes, no matter what you decide, I'm going to support you. But I have to ask, what are you running from? And I was like, what do you mean? He was like, why do you feel the need to put so much stuff on your plate? What are you running from? And immediately at the time, I was like, psh, I'm fine. I don't need that. But after everything slowed down and my life calmed down, I realized that I was in survival mode, not because of the campaign, but just my whole life, from being in the military, from having to win a lot of awards, from having to be the best of whatever it was that I got into. I was running from life rather than sitting with life and experiencing life. And I truly think a lot of my growth is what's attracted the beautiful relationship I have now, because I now have a partner, Alan, who calls me out even more than you do. And he creates space for me to be my highest self. And before him, I would have thought that Miss Hyper Independent, that I didn't need anybody and that I could, be my highest self all by myself. But you and I talk about the masculine and feminine energy a lot. And through his very safe masculine container, I am the highest version of myself. And through your friendship of calling me out and keeping me accountable to myself, that's where I feel like my growth has come from.
Oh yeah, and I'll echo the fact that I've been the best relationship I've ever been in with the most amazing woman, and a lot of that has to be that I now have a safe masculine, and I think that, men frequently confuse masculinity with dominance, which it's not, and I think we've talked about that, the difference between recreation and entertainment. And there's this manly entertainment of all day football and screaming at a TV and wearing jerseys with another man's name on your back and my team. And that's fine. I mean, if you do that and you're occasionally and you root for a team, but I think it's gotten excessive where you are supposed to be considered more of a man when you have more about your fantasy league than your kids' grades in their school, and you're screaming at a TV. And I know some friends of mine or acquaintances, at least, they're so unemotionally regulated. They have to be alone for the big game because they can't handle themselves. And I think that goes back to the masculinity, femininity, and the confusion of how do I draw the feminine out of my partner. Well, it's by being masculine, but not dominant in that aspect. And it's just really it's been a fascinating journey in Catherine and I's friendship, because I'm a better man because of our friendship. And I finally attracted such an amazing woman because of these types of conversations we're having here, we have for hours.
Well, two things. One, his girlfriend, Stephanie, her and I were friends before, and she was on the same track as me. We're both in real estate, and she gave me permission to rest. She tapped into her feminine energy way before I did, and she inspires me constantly. But going back to what he was saying specifically about the football aggression, we actually talked about this at breakfast this morning, and one of the things in our society is that the only socially acceptable emotion for a man to display is aggression. And aggression is actually wounded masculine energy. That safety container that we keep talking about, that is divine masculine energy. And when men are in that wounded, aggressive masculine energy, it puts a woman into their wounded feminine energy, which is that desperate, that needy, and then they start taking control, and there's a whole thing we can get into, but it's what our society has gotten into because we have went so far in the pendulum of trying to suppress the male energy and then put the female energy up on a pedestal, but we mutually need each other, and both energies are incredibly powerful, but women have to learn how to surrender and soften, which that does not mean giving up your power. If anything, that means finding the depth of your power. And men have to be able to willing to share more emotions than just anger. Like just now when you were talking about a part of the Bible and like your relationship to that story, like you can tell how regulated your nervous system is and how safe you are in your body because you can express that. And Mike does the same thing. And Chris, honestly, you have some of the most loving, warm energy of like any man that I've ever met. When I first met you, you like hugged me and
I was like, where
but you do. You have very inviting and warm energy. And I think a lot of men think that if I can just be cold and serious and distant, that I'm stoic and I'm masculine. But even stoic energy doesn't mean that disconnect. If you can't feel others, you can't feel yourself, and you're not truly you.
Well, and we've talked about this. I think when it says the man is the head of the household in the Bible, I think that means the head beating where your brain is, and then the woman is the heart. So it's the head and the heart which have to go together and equal but different. And I think that the desire of our gender as men is to utilize that passage as a weapon. I'm the head of the household. Well, are you taking care of the things the head is supposed to take care of, or are you watching football all day Saturday and Sunday while the heart is worried about whether the bills are going to get paid and when's the last time that we on a date, and are you going to be able to take the kids to school? Are you going to be able to help me with this? And so I think it's such a fascinating conversation that I wish more people would have grace and truth together with each other with authenticity, and not utilize some of the things that we talk about as a weapon against each other.
That's a sorry. What you said too about like the man being the head of the household, when you actually translate it back in the Hebrew, so it says the man is the leader and the woman is the helper. The only other time they use that word helper is when it has man leaning on God.
Yeah.
So it actually is going way beyond of being submissive to the husband, but saying that the man needs to lean on his wife as he would lean on God for the help to actually move forward and to move through this life together.
And
It's
that-
very
I've heard
powerful.
that. That's so good.
Well, and so many women, myself included, I have always been in my masculine energy. I didn't realize that, but I was a female that could run with the best of them. That's just what I've always done my whole life. My mother was the same way, and I always saw like stay-at-home moms and things like that as less than. But like now in my life where I've shifted to like the divine masculine energy holds space for a woman to be able to be so in touch with their emotions and their intuition that they can be that intuitive connection to God's source, whatever you call it, to help the man be in the material world and do what needs to be done to come home to that space of the safety container that he creates. And I think we've just lost sight of that.
Yeah, and I go back to the analogy on the pruning, right? Every social media post, and what I think people don't realize, and is that every time you look at a social media post, you're doing two things. This comes from somebody else, so I take no credit for this, but you're judging and you're comparing.
Yeah.
Right? You're judging. Am I going to like this? Am I going to forward this? Am I going to repost this? And then you're comparing your life to that post. And I think we're a lot of a generation that does less and is exhausted so fast. And I don't think you understand the mental energy drain every time you do that. Like judge, compare. And that's the pruning process, right? Literally every time you're sitting there and you're judging and comparing, and if you look at the average amount of time that we're on social media for the average American, the amount of time for especially children and TikTok and all this other stuff, they're exhausted. They're stressed out by everything. But that's not just kids, it's adults too. I mean, I was sadly looking at a table. I was traveling in a hotel and I looked over and there's a dad with 3 kids sitting there. The 3 kids had their babysitter, i.e. a screen, and the dad was on his phone. They ate breakfast at the buffet in this nice hotel. They did not say one word to each other the entire time that this family was sitting there. And that's pruning the seed that's within each of them. That father has a seed in him to be a wonderful father. And that's not to say there's not so many circumstances that are easily justified. I mean, lost the job, got beat up, went through bankruptcy. Everybody, you have those stories. But I think the big thing is at some point in life, if you're sitting here listening to this, you just have to take extreme ownership and say, you know what? I don't have social media on my phone. I have social media, but it's on my laptop. And I intentionally am, I mean, I always joke. I was like, I think 85% of all posts on social media are done in a bathroom. Like the number, how many people have you seen literally that came back to the table because they were going to the bathroom and forgot their phone?
Oh, yeah.
Right? I mean, it's crazy.
So much interaction is on the toilet.
If we change that mindset to say, I'm being pruned. I'm being pruned by the algorithms. I'm being pruned by TV. They call it programming and TV programs for a reason, and so I think that's the challenge is, and hopefully that's why you do this show, is if just a handful of people go, you know what? I'm deleting social media from my phone. I'm only going to time block it on my computer. I'm going to not have my phone constantly on the table or with me. I love Simon Sinek is fantastic. He was given a speech and he started the speech with his phone in his hand. And he wasn't looking at it at all.
At the store, yeah.
And then he put it in his pocket and he continued his speech. He said, hold on a minute. I have a question. How many of you were listening to what I said when I had my phone in my hand, or you felt like I wasn't fully present with you, but as soon as you couldn't see my phone, you knew I was fully present with you? 100% of the hands went up. Yet how somehow, right, I'm looking here, like nobody's got their phone here while we're having this conversation. And there's a presence to that. And, I heard a podcast the other day, which was wonderful. It said most people spend their entire life either regretting or reminiscing about the past or planning and worrying about the future. And they don't spend any time in the moment that is the present, that literally is the only time we ever live. It's today, right now, this moment. We cannot live in the future and we cannot live in the past. That's not to say that we shouldn't set goals. That's not to say that it's not okay to have great objectives for the future. But when it paralyzes you to the point it's pruning you because you have nothing in the present. We all know the high school sports jock that the letter and still talks about the glory days.
Mm-hmm.
And then we also talk about the person, I can't believe that person left me, and they can't get over divorce or a past thing that went wrong in their life. And then you also know the people that they never talk about how joyful their life is, their relationships are, their children are, their friendships are today. They're always talking about what could possibly be in the future to make them happy. And I think it's so cliche to say they call it the present for a reason, but really the happiest people I know, the most joyful people I know, really don't talk much about the past except like any lessons they've learned to get them to where they are today. They talk about where things can be in the future. They almost don't talk about people at all.
Well, when I first got out of the military, my identity was wrapped around that. And I would always talk about it. I felt like it was so important. And I realized that a lot of the reasons that a lot of us live in the past or constantly are talking about our goals in the future is because there's some lack of validation that's happening in the now, that we are seeking some type of external validation to be able to make us feel okay in this moment. And like similarly to what you're talking about with social media, supposedly we're the most connected we've ever been, but yet we're the most disconnected we've ever been. And I've been off social media since April, and I've noticed how many people on rare occasion now that I actually have conversations with they just assume I know everything about their life because they've been posting, and they just think that people look at it. And even when I was on social media, I never really scrolled, but the realization is I don't have relationships with a lot of people because they assume I'm following them. And how disconnected is that?
And I think, so obviously in the 2000s when MySpace, Facebook, it took away from that ability for us to sit and be present. So many times, like I understand it's great for like the older people because they're missing out. Like they don't get to see their grandkids or like their children all the time because they're so far away, and it's a connection. But I think it still separates them from being present when you're in this position to be like, oh, what have you been doing? Tell me about your life. Because like you said, everyone assumes you already know what's going on because we have access to it.
Well, it's also curated.
Yeah.
That's not really their life.
No.
Right? I mean, and you can bleep this out, but I mean, how many people have scrolled and like, how is this bitch on vacation again?
Mm-hmm.
Shut up,
Does
you're always
she
on
ever
vacation.
work?
I was gonna say, you know, 4,000 how is this asshole on vacation again?
They never work. And that's the judging your own life, right? I mean, it's like you get so frustrated by a false curation of other people's lives and you demean your own when right in front of you is probably the most amazing potential relationship if you fed it, right? What's that? Which wolf dies and which lives? The one you feed, right? And we're feeding, in many cases, I am blessed to have a good group of people around me. And that is the challenge. Sometimes you have to prune your circle, right? To make sure your circle isn't pruning you.
Well, and we're missing out on being bored.
Yeah.
Everything in our world came from boredom. You're missing out on your creativity. Like both of you can be a leader and that seed is inside of you. If you're not sitting with it, if you're not cultivating it, what are you doing?
That's such a great.
Like you're missing out on stuff. Like you're spending so much time at like we're energy. Everything we do, from the energy you get out of bed in the morning, from the energy that you put out into a thought, whatever. And when you're wasting it, like you were talking about with the bank account and putting it on social media or watching somebody else's life through TV or watching somebody else's success through sports or whatever it is, you're missing out on your life. I mean, the world has been around for what, 4.5 billion years? If you're lucky, you might live 80. What the hell are you doing with it?
That's it. You know, what you just said strikes me as Einstein was sitting in class bored and not paying attention at all to the lecture. And he just started staring at a clock and he was watching the second hand tick and tick and tick slowly and slowly. And he said, I wonder why it's ticking. I wonder if you could make that slow down. And then he started going, I wonder if there would be a way to make that clock tick backward. It's how he created a theory of relativity. It was the questions that occurred sitting in the middle of a class, completely bored, just thinking. So you're so right when you say that.
Somebody had to stare at the stars. Somebody had to sit and stare at a flower to understand photosynthesis. Like everything in life is through boredom. Like you get to know yourself. And instead we're numbing ourselves through distraction.
The most purity you can see is now that I have is my children, right?
Yeah.
So like you can watch like the most pure child grow up, and then you can see too, even as like a parent, where you start screwing up, right? Because it starts happening quicker, like through them. So like I realized that my son was watching like too much like screens and TV and stuff. And I was like, okay, this is not right. I need to like mess this up, because he was like dying for it. You could tell he was addicted
dopamine,
to all of that going on. So it was like, okay, this is just at an end. And very rarely when you do, it's going to be low. That's what I'm looking for. Like, it's always trying to catch your attention, but basically like slower shows. That's not going to be like hitting that dopamine receptor every 3 seconds is what they actually found. And at first it went back to, he kept saying, Dad, but I'm bored. I'm bored. I said, dude, it's good to be bored sometimes. Sometimes you need to be bored. And he goes, I don't think so. And so I was like, well, give it a shot. See what happens. And then he started like playing. He came up with this like whole game and imagination and everything. And like seeing his whole creativity literally switch on a dime, like within a week.
Yeah.
And now he won't even watch TV on his own accord because he knows he doesn't like how he feels when he watches TV. he'd rather be drawing. He'd rather be outside playing somewhere, or just like playing with a stick and making it a magic wand and turning his sister into a duck. Like,
I love it. I haven't owned a TV in probably 8 years, and Alan and I recently moved in together, and we don't have a TV. And his son Sterling has always been someone that's used to that kind of thing. And Sterling had a PlayStation a while ago, which we've also gotten rid of. And our household saying is when Sterling says he's bored, we say, "Great, what are you going to do about it?"
right.
And now, I mean, he's writing rap lyrics. He loves to draw all the time. He'll get on his bike and go fishing. Like, that kid is so creative and so smart, but it's through cultivating space for his boredom.
Right.
And as parents, being okay with the kid being bored.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which means sometimes too, especially with toddlers, like it means they are going to act up.
Yes.
Which means I get the opportunity to actually be a parent
Yeah.
and not just throw a screen in front of them and just offload that
Well,
responsibility.
and then self-regulate too as an individual.
I was just gonna say,
Right.
you get to show them self-regulation,
Right. Exactly.
where you're not mirroring their upsetness about the situation. You're like, it's okay.
Right.
It's okay that you're upset. Do you need to be alone for a little while
Mm-hmm.
to
What's
get to work through this?
the saying you always say with Shelby when she'd be upset?
Oh, you have the right to be angry. You don't have the right to be rude,
I say that all the time.
Mhm.
right? You have the
Mhm.
right to be confused, especially like when she was going into her teen years and changes that are going on. I'm like, you have the right to have no idea what's going on, but you don't have the right to be it.
Mhm.
I love how when it's Shelby, he edits.
First time I bleep myself out to the show.
So I have 2 questions for you to end up the podcast. First one silly, second one serious. So as a kid, we were riding down the street, sitting in the back of the car, no screens, no nothing. Did you look out and like imagine like something running down the power lines or jumping across trees, or did you just stare out into the outdoors in the back seat?
So I grew up in an era where station wagons were popular and seatbelts were not. So we had a bunch of toys and things. My little brother was 8 years younger than me, which basically meant I ruled him. But no, we'd play. They'd have games back there. Yeah, my dad had a pickup truck that he ended up putting a cab on and carpeting the whole back with some benches, and we would crawl back there and go on on a road trip or whatever. So there was always like looking at the countryside and counting cows or doing whatever like that. So yeah, it was just going on a road trip or doing that was so fun.
I was always the co-pilot because my mom, we always joked that she could get lost in a Barbie doll paper bag. So I would have atlases out and like Quest maps back when that was a thing. And I would always be calculating, okay, in this many mile, I was like, what is Google Maps? Yeah, but what do we call Google Maps? I'm gonna say Siri, but like I was that for my mom all the time of like, okay, in this many miles based off of this math, we're gonna be turning left on this street. So that was my life in the car as a kid.
Well, so the reason I asked that question is because we were talking about boredom
Yeah.
and like, what do you do in that boredom? How do you fill that space? So that's why I was curious.
I love filling the boredom space. I think it's the most creative I am is when you can sit quietly with your own thoughts, or even more important, try to eliminate thought through the. I used to think prayer and meditation were the same thing, and I don't think they are. I think prayer is active. Whoever your God is, for me, I'm a Bible believing Christian. For you, if it's something different, if it's just the universe, if it's energy, that's all okay, right? But I think that's a communication two-way, right? You're going back and forth. Whereas meditation is a quieting thing and just seeing where it goes. And I have pretty high energy overall. People joke. I always say I don't idle well, right? I want to be in motion. I'm probably at a point in my life where I feel the best I've ever felt, and I actually idle well.
Mine is clear-minded meditation. I've done 500 hours worth of yoga training in the last 2 years, and it took like almost a month in Costa Rica to find it. But when I noticed that I've been out in the world too much and that there is a lot of noise out there, like in my mind, I'm just sitting in silence. And then in my bag, I've switched from a purse to a backpack. I'm that person now. And I have a journal in there, and then Patanjali's Yoga Sutras. And just, I'm constantly studying, growing, like learning more about the world and how I can evolve.
So that leads to my next question. So it's been a while since you've both been on the podcast. and we've talked about a lot today, which kind of showcases like the transition in your mindset and the growth that you guys have had, pruning yourselves and just kind of like adjusting and being something different. Because I can admit, like, you were two very different people than you were the last time you were on the podcast. And I say that in like, it's not a good way or a bad way. No, it is a good way.
Thank you.
But just admitting that everyone is different than the last time you saw them.
Yeah.
Like, I think a lot of times, like you mentioned, people picture the past, and when you see somebody, you imagine them as their previous iteration and not
Yeah.
accepting that they're different. So then my question is, now, like, what is your success? Like, what do you view as success? Because I know it's definitely different.
Ladies first.
I don't focus on myself anymore. Like, I focus on self-awareness and trying to show up better in the world. Like, before, I think that I was more self-centered in regards of, does this look good? Can I fix this more? Can this be better? And now it's, can I be better for others? And I feel like I have so much more responsibility in my life than I did before. And I'm actually doing more than I've ever done. But I'm slow and intentional, and I have such an incredible partner that helps me to stay in that space. And my success is in the simplicity of my happiness, I think.
By the way, just us being friends for years, I would echo that. And I think for me, I don't compete against, I compete with my potential now. Where I think especially growing up and Tyler, you and I've talked about our young days in Pennsylvania and that sort of stuff. And it's just like, I have to compete to get out of this. I have to compete to achieve this. I have to compete to like have this objective. One, I think I enjoy the journey more than I ever have.
Mhm.
And my only competition is going back to that redwood seed. It's like, am I watering and fertilizing and doing the things to my own God-given capabilities that I get to realize those, as opposed to, and also making sure I'm not pruning anybody else. Am I helping fertilize other people? And sometimes going back to that, the grace and truth is when sometimes you're making deposits into somebody else's account that 99.9% of people that hear them think it's a withdrawal, but it's really a deposit. It's a deposit of, I believe in you. Even if you don't believe in yourself, I see the energy in you. I see the potential in you. And I think if anything, I've probably gotten more candid since the last podcast with other people in one-on-one and even group interactions. And I'm not competing against, but I'm competing to be all that I feel like was put within.
So you guys you will insert yourself sometimes, but not a lot of people ask you questions on the podcast. So, that's me. I always love to ask you guys questions. So to flip it back, I'm going to incorporate both of your questions and shoot it over to you guys. You both seem happier and more rested than the last time I saw you. And you clearly both are carrying a lot of joy in your hearts and your lives. Where do you guys find your rest? Where is your joy coming from right now?
I think kind of what Mike was saying is I find a lot more joy in the journey than I used to.
Yeah.
So there was always me rushing to find something, kind of like what you said to Catherine, is like, what are you running from?
Yeah.
I realized there was always something I was running from. It was something I was trying to catch up to is what I thought.
Yeah.
I always thought there was something in front of me and realized there was something behind me. And realizing that I had to make that switch and having more of that joy in the journey is where a lot of this comes from. You guys coming back on now too. This was the first time in 3.5 years that we ever took a break from the podcast. So we took about, from the last one, but probably close to 2 months.
That's why you guys look so rested.
Right, yeah, exactly.
And it got to the point where like we were building out the office and the studio and everything. And I was just trying to fill. And I realized I was also doing that in life, right? It was like, hey, where's this boredom coming from? I'm going to fill it.
Yeah.
And it got to the point where I wasn't being intentional with anything. I was just filling time. And I saw myself doing it with the podcast. And when I finally stepped back and looked at that, I go, shit, I was doing this with my life.
Yeah.
I need to fix this too. So that's where a lot of the joy comes from, where I'm at now, even with work, with family, with the podcast. That's awesome.
Tell us, Chris.
Oh, my rest is
And
So-
joy.
Huh?
Is it and joy?
rest and joy is quite literally just sitting now. So my wife asked of me to like build a back patio. I hated doing it in the moment because one, I just despise doing things that I don't think I'll do perfectly. So we built it. I love it, but it's nice now that I can like go out and like walk on my back area and like just listen to quiet and the train running on the tracks behind our house. Just like understanding that I'm not in the city and I can just listen to quiet again. So then it kind of like rejuvenates me instead of being at work, which I love being at work with all my friends and all my coworkers and like the pace, but then being able to like go home and like put the phone down and be like, okay, it's quiet, which one, I wish more cities would allow. No more apartments and just more houses that you can just sit back and like look at the sky, because we all just need to like slow down a little bit.
I feel like we've all somehow hit the same page without ever speaking about it, and that maybe, hopefully, the world is kind of making that
Right.
shift of settling.
Growth.
Yeah. When I was in my undergrad in operations, one of my professors said we're going towards a point, this was before AI was a big thing, where technology was going to take over and we're going to be more consumed by technology. And he was like painting like this nihilistic type of future. And then he was doing it on purpose. He was painting this like nihilistic future of where we would be. And he goes, but I have more faith in humanity than that. And there's going to be a straw that breaks this camel's back. And we're going to start going back to realizing what's more important. And I think for a lot of people, at least the people that we surround ourselves with, I think we've realized that.
Do you have any final question?
Take it away, Chris.
So do you guys want to shout out anything? I know you're not really on social media, but anything going on in your life that you want to be like, hey, you guys keep an eye out. Anything for you? Any fun trips?
I've got a wedding in Mexico for some great friends next month, but
Nice.
no real shout outs. I am working on a book actually that we talked about earlier that I hope to have out next year sometime.
Nice.
I've got one on Amazon now called Impactful Development. Essentially, it's how to help solve the country's affordable housing crisis from that perspective, which is a passion. But the one I'm working on is the moment of decision, and it's really hopefully what will become a impactful personal development and reflection, along with explaining and charting David's life and how to learn from those experiences and how many moments of decision we have and how to process those and look back and go, wow, that was really the right path I should have been.
Work-wise, I've switched over to the design side of real estate, which is where I started. The whole reason I got my real estate license was from flipping, and now I'm on the building side, which is a whole other animal, but I love it.
Yeah.
Because I'm like in that creative space, and it's the home I was meant to be in, but because of that, I'm not really on the client side of things now. But one of the hobbies I've picked up is I teach yoga over at Emotion. So if I'm going to shout out to anybody,
Nice.
it's going to be for Emotion. I'm actually going to start teaching the 5 a.m.s on Tuesdays starting next month. But right now I just teach Monday at noon. But like that is like my weekly church. Like that is my home, my grounding space, my way of staying in this like calm. So if you haven't been to Emotion, that's who I'm shouting out.
That's an awesome spot. And she's
That's
a
how we
great
became
instructor.
friends. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was honestly, we met at a bar, but we through me. Clarify. I was on 75 hard when we met, and he had actually done 75 hard, and he was like, "Hey, let's go to a 5 a.m. yoga class." I was like, "I do yoga. This is great." And I took Macy Cole's 5 a.m. yoga class, and they were speaking Sanskrit in a whole other language, doing crazy stuff. Everybody's in like chin stand and kunyasana, and I didn't know what any of those words meant.
Still
And
don't.
yeah, and now I live.
definitely
I
don't.
live there, but travel-wise, leaving for Europe in a week and a half, and then taking Alan to Bermuda for his birthday.
Oh, nice. That's
Does
awesome.
he know about that?
Yes, that's
Okay.
why I said it.
This will be out after his birthday, probably.
Yeah.
I love that. I like to see where people travel. One, I have a travel list running through my head, and then I'm always like, oh, well, this seems interesting. So
We were supposed to go to Mexico with them, but then our Europe trip got moved.
that's the one thing I like about social media is seeing where people went and like their perspective while they were there. Because like me and my wife are very history focused, and a lot of people are just like aesthetic focused. So it's
When you stop
It's
posting,
interesting.
it's crazy where you want to go and what you want to do.
well, thank you guys. We will catch you in the next one. Like, comment, share, subscribe. And if you're not Tyler,
Are you guys just gonna add like a cool closure in here since everybody's getting?
everyone's running away. I promise I did not pass gas or anything. But yeah, like, comment, share, subscribe, and comment down below or in the IG caption what has been your favorite topic today. Did you know about bonsai trees?
I've heard Mike's story before, and like once I understood that, it clicked in my mind of like, oh my god, like what am I doing in my life where I'm missing out on my full redwood potential?
See,
Yeah.
see? Learning something new every day.
Mhm.
But yeah, peace. Bye.